The other day, I was invited out to dinner by some friends. Unfortunately, I had to say no, even though the meal seemed delicious. Even if I could leave, that wasn't my only reason for saying no. I said no because it was a family gathering and I didn't want to intrude. Families have a bond and stick together through thick and thin, just like the Emerys in the Amazon TV show, Them. And believe you me, they go through a lot in the 10 days in which the season takes place. I will be going over some spoilers in my recap and review, but at the end I will discuss big spoilers, so watch at your own risk. Episode 1 starts off with a dream sequence / flashback.
Whippy!
I really wish stories would actually start when they start and not like keep on backtracking to scenes that we're supposed to learn about later. I mean, especially when they're like insane events. I would definitely like to see that happen to the family like in real time. And the whole family is moving from North Carolina to California, and then we get some text info talking about the Great Migration that happened during the mid-1900s. I had to ask around some of the older people up at 6 Feet Under, and no, this show is not based on a true story. Good. I was looking forward to some monsters and ghosts and the like, which I enjoy much more than horror stories about real events. The family moves in and tries to adjust, but everyone around them is just not having it. In the middle of night 2, the little girl wanders and encounters a super tall monster.
So we finally meet.
Unfortunately, she wasn't that hot. The next morning, the mom, Lucky, walks into the room and notices that there are markings on the little girl's neck, and her name's Gracie. Also, the dog's neck is snapped and he's in the basement. And the second that she finds the dog, Lucky's just not having it, and she grabs the family gun and starts waving it in the middle of the street, telling everyone to just fuck off. Episode 2 is a flashback, and the dad, Henry, was in the military, and when he came home, he had some bad PTSD. But now we're back to the present, and the cops are responding to the gun incident. They check Gracie's neck, and the markings are gone. We are treated to more supernatural stuff, and I hope it just keeps on coming, because if it's not, I'm going to write the show off as meh. It also seems like the mom may be a bit crazy, but then again, the dad is still struggling with some PTSD, so these kids may have to fend for themselves. We are also introduced to Betty, who is one of the other main characters who lives on the opposite side of the street of the family, and she's like the monster of the burbs. Anyway, she's just a horrible person in general, although not very surprising. Episode 3, which is day 4, the mom chases a kid with a stick after he pees on her air-drying laundry, and we get the first look at a new monster, and hopefully it won't be the last time we see it. Also, the dream scene, or the flashback at the beginning of the season, we get more information about it, even though we don't know exactly what happened, but we kind of know the infant's son passed away. Betty is also starting to get Miss Carmody level of power in the neighborhood.
And it is his fault. Yes,
No!
it is your
No! It is not my fault!
You, they did it. They spit in the eye of the Almighty.
Yes, it is! No!
And we get another new monster. Episode 4 is day 6. Apparently selling the house isn't an option. Don't know why exactly, and I don't really care. Ruby has a friend at the school that seems too good to be true. Lucky finds another family close by that went through the same racial harassment, but also the same supernatural stuff as well. But Lucky is the least reliable witness when it comes to that kind of stuff. So maybe that did happen, maybe it didn't. Anyways, we get a backstory to our main human villain, and it seems like they want me to feel bad or make her seem more human, but all monsters are the same. Down here, at least. Episode 5 gives us a disclosure that this will be a rough one, and even if I could leave this chair or change the channel, I do not shy away from any story. This episode is brutal, but it is essential to the backstory of this poor family. It does explain the short fuse that the parents have, but even if this episode didn't happen, their short fuses would still be justified by only the stuff happening in East Compton, where they live. Episode 6 is Day 7, and this ep has a lot of supernatural goodness that makes these old bones tingle. Episode 7 is the night of Day 7, and the central theme of this episode is everyone just lost their damn mind. Episode 8 is Day 9, because I guess no one gives a shit about Day 8. Would have been nice to see Lucky being put into an insane asylum and Betty in the basement of a psychopath, but maybe that's just me. And everything is pretty much as bad as it can get for all of our main characters. Episode 9 gives us the backstory of the man in the black hat that plagues Lucky. And with ghosts, it's a bit of a toss-up. Either it's an evil spirit that wants to do more evil things, or it's a good person who was wronged and does evil because of their suffering. And then there is Casper, he being the rarest of them all.
Boo?
Episode 10 is the night of Day 9, and it is filled with supernatural goodies, epic resolutions, good, bad, unresolved, and unexplained endings, and that is the show. Overall, I know this show doesn't have the best reviews, but I actually really liked it. It had characters that really took charge and were quick to react. The blatant racism in the show is brutal, and I could see that some scenes would be too much, but this is horror. Pussies are not part of this demographic. And you know what I mean by that. If you don't take the political parts too personally, I would recommend this show. A great horror movie actually explains pretty well why something like this would happen to this family at this specific time in their lives.
Depression, the second stage. Now, this is where the victim, and it's usually the one who's the most psychologically vulnerable, is targeted specifically by an external force. Breaks the victim down, crushes their will.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But let's get a second opinion from someone on the receiving end. I'd give this show a 7, maybe an 8 out of 10. The kind of horror you see is ghosts, torture, trauma, and people going psycho. Now I'm going to go into major spoilers because there are some flaws in the show that must be talked about. Turn this off if you don't want to hear any. First of all, episode 10 is called Day 10, but we don't know it's Day 10 until the last second of the episode states it, so I guess it's 12:01 a.m. on Day 10. It's kind of an odd choice. Also, Henrik killed the only cop that helped the family out. He did it for terrible and selfish reasons, but the way the show ended, they could have really used him on their side to explain the dead guy in the basement and calm the other cops down that are pointing their guns at the family right before the show ends. They might have survived the ghost, but I doubt anything good is going to happen to them the second the morning comes on Day 10. And did all of the spirits come from the man in the black hat? The kids weren't suffering the same problems that inspired their ghosts like the parents. Lucky is the only one who talks to him directly. In fact, she drew the short straw and had the most ghosts bothering her to the point where you can't trust anything that is happening to her when she is on screen. Did she ever go to the relative's house? Because she called the hairstyler to come to her place, but turns out she was a ghost too. So... Also, Betty's husband's side story didn't get resolved at all. His neighbor calls him gay, which makes him finally snap. But what about the money he took from his joint account with his wife? Did he spend their entire savings at a gay bar? Was he even working? How did he spend that much? And on what? They never say anything about it other than that one insult from the neighbor and the cop saying his buddy saw him in a bad part of town. And I also caught the show when they took out Under God from the Pledge of Allegiance. It was subtle, but I noticed it. This show doesn't have the best reviews, and I understand why. Something that could have helped is if there were some nice or helpful white characters, but there isn't any. Unless you count the old guy in the store who has one line, and I sure as hell don't even count that. I did laugh pretty hard when Betty died. When the show teased the idea that she may be able to survive the milkman, I was thinking that the experience softened her and she would be kinder to our main characters, and then she just got sniped. When they kept the dolls outside of the house, at first I didn't know why, but I liked the reasoning behind why they kept them. The girl who played Ruby maybe a bad actress. I'm trying to think back, and I think a lot of her facial expressions seemed the same. When she was angry, when she cursed, or even sad. Ever since this casting director in a horror group I follow called out Anya Taylor-Joy for being an expressionless actress, he even posted a photo of her smiling without any wrinkles, just so her face stays young for as long as possible. I started to notice it more and more, and I think Shahadi Wright Joseph might be doing the same thing. I did really like the cheerleader scene in the basement. It's one of my favorite scenes in the show. But when they were hiding in the janitor's closet earlier and get busted by the janitor and run out, how did Ruby not figure out that her friend wasn't real when she just disappeared? Henry got the best supernatural moments. The Daptans man, which is his name, was utterly creepy, and I wanted more scenes with him inciting Henry to do more messed up stuff. I will say, it was weird when Henry rubbed his face paint off after he killed him, and it was just a completely different person. I didn't recognize him. Maybe someone can help me out on the meaning behind it, if there is any. Lucky's best supernatural moment was in the house of the women who cooked her children. Gracie's best moment was when she killed Miss Vera and tore her into pieces. And that's all I really have to say about them. If you want to comment about my major spoiler questions or comments, feel free to do it. I'll respond and we'll get a conversation going. Thanks for stopping by, and I almost hope you can get out, but if you could, don't you think I would have tried?